Hello, good evening. Welcome to a special edition of Look North from Selby. I'm at the top of the bell tower of Selby Abbey. Just look at those phenomenal views across the constituency. Political history has been made here because 25-year-old Keir Mather has been named new Labour MP for Selby and Ainsty.
I hereby declare that Keir Mather is duly elected.
It's the biggest Conservative majority Labour have overturned at a by-election since the Second World War. And the work starts now for the new MP, with cost of living and the NHS top of people's agendas.
Good luck to the new incoming MP. He's young, I understand, and we'll see what happens.
We'll get reaction from here in the constituency and look ahead at what it might mean for the general election. Also tonight,
more than 100,000 people are heading to Sheffield this weekend for the Tramlines Music Festival. Join us live in Hillsborough Park later.
And the weather today has been more hit and miss. There's been some sunshine, but once again there's been some shower clouds about, and some of those showers have been heavy. The rain looks more persistent and at times heavy as well over the weekend. I'll be back later in the programme with a full forecast for Saturday, Sunday, and a look into next week as well.
hello, good evening. You're joining me from the marketplace in Selby, and this town has been a media hotspot today because there's a new Keir in town. Keir Mather is the new MP for Selby and Ainsty. At 25 years old, he's the youngest MP in the House of Commons, and last night he made history for the Labour Party. This seat was held by Conservative MP Nigel Adams since the seat was formed in 2010, but last month he stood down, triggering this by-election, and the 20,000 Conservative majority was overturned by Labour. We'll hear from the new MP, nicknamed Baby of the House, very shortly, but first Tim Iredale has the story of the night.
I hereby declare that Keir Mather is duly elected.
The smile said it all. Just a few weeks ago, the prospect of this North Yorkshire constituency turning red would have been unthinkable. But Keir Mather pulled off an historic win for Labour.
We have rewritten the rules on where Labour can win. People have opened their doors to us and embraced our positive vision for the future, and thousands of the votes cast yesterday were in Labour's box for the very first time.
At the last general election, Conservative Nigel Adams won Selby and Ainsty by more than 20,000 votes. Labour overturned that Tory lead and secured a majority of more than 4,000. A result which the Labour leader Keir Starmer described as a cry for change.
You voted for change. You put your trust in the Labour Party, and we hear you. We hear that cry for change, away from the chaos, away from those rising bills, the crumbling public services, a cry for change. And we will deliver. We will deliver through Keir Mather here, and we'll deliver with the next Labour government.
Although the Conservatives held on to Boris Johnson's old seat in Uxbridge, it'll be the result here in Selby, just down the road from Rishi Sunak's own Richmond constituency, that may cause the Prime Minister some sleepless nights.
By-elections mid-term for an incumbent government are always difficult. They rarely win them. The message I take away is that we've got to double down, stick to our plan and deliver for people. That's what I heard when I was out on the doorsteps, and that's what we're going to do.
At 25, Selby and Ainsty's newly elected representative will be the youngest MP, officially known as the Baby of the House. Many hopes now rest on his shoulders. Tim Iredale, BBC Look North, Selby.
What a night it was. We'll analyse those results with Tim Iredale shortly. But first, what got us here? What triggered this by-election? Our political correspondent, James Vincent, can explain.
It's been a busy month, and we're only here because Nigel Adams followed his mate out the door.
Boris Johnson was banged to rights that he misled the House.
Spiteful, vindictive and overreaching.
The MP for Selby and Ainsty has stepped down with immediate effect, triggering a third by-election.
Nigel Adams' old office has been painted over in a seat where they had a 20,000 vote lead. They weren't expecting a by-election.
When I'm talking to local people on the doorstep, they're not telling me that their priority is party political point scoring.
People in Selby and Ainsty need an MP who's going to stand up for them. Nigel Adams has resigned and left them without representation in Parliament.
Big mates with Boris Johnson, no one actually knows why Nigel Adams quit, but he did miss out in the Prime Minister's resignation honours.
Get somebody who can sort the job out, aren't they?
I don't really care who gets it. Well, they're all as bad as each other, really, aren't they?
It meant a third summer by-election in a row for Yorkshire.
Campaigning keeps you fit.
It's a June by-election. It's red hot in this sports hall.
In a town full of flour mills, dough was on people's minds.
The cost of living crisis, it's been incredibly difficult. I wish I did have some faith, but unfortunately, no.
In a short campaign, the party's got plenty of airtime.
Well, it's been great to be out campaigning today in Selby and Ainsty with Claire Holmes. She is a brilliant local candidate.
Frankly, I don't think the Tories deserve to win here. The Conservative MP threw his toys out of the pram because he didn't get what he wanted.
Until all that was left to do was vote.
I hereby declare that Keir Mather is duly elected.
This is simply a stunning result, the biggest majority that Labour has ever overturned, and in Rishi Sunak's backyard.
Under Keir Starmer's leadership, we've got an actual mission-driven plan to achieve some of the things that matter to the most. And in this by-election, I was extremely proud to stand on a local plan to help support residents through the cost of living crisis, make our local NHS fit for the future. People know that Labour MPs have this record of delivery, and if they have a hard-working Labour MP in their seat, they can get the sort of change that they need. And I'm just extremely proud that voters in Selby and Ainsty have given our programme this ringing endorsement in this by-election.
For Labour, the general election can't come soon enough.
Well, we've just heard they were expecting a general election next year. So what does this result tell us about that? I'm joined now in the Abbey Gardens by Tim Iredale. You've been across every BBC News outlet today talking about this, Tim. How surprising was the result?
Amy, imagine going back a few weeks and going up to the top of Selby Abbey, because I know you've got a head for heights, and shouting to everyone that Selby and Ainsty is going to become a Labour constituency. I think people might have thought you'd been spending too much time in those popular breweries in this constituency, but that is exactly what's happened. I think Labour always thought they were in with a chance, but as the campaign wore on and they went out on the doorsteps and spoke to voters, people were telling Labour activists that they were for now fed up with the government. They weren't happy with the way the government was dealing with a number of issues, and there we have this historic Labour victory here in Selby. It's
such a diverse constituency, isn't it? You've got those affluent rural villages in the north, and then to the side, to the bottom, to the south, the ex-mining communities in industrial areas. This MP has really got his work cut out.
Yeah, he has. I think there's a temptation, to look at this area and think just because it's a large rural constituency in North Yorkshire, traditional Tory territory up to this week, that it's a wealthy area. And of course, it isn't a wealthy area. People here are talking about things that everybody's talking about: the cost of living, prices going up, people not being able to see a doctor, NHS waiting lists. And those are all the things that Rishi Sunak has been pledging to sort out. So yeah, there is a lot of pressure on Keir Mather to deliver, and also pressure on Rishi Sunak to prove that he can address voters' concerns.
Tim, thank you. Well, we will hear from the new MP, Keir Mather, very shortly. But first, how much do we really know about the new MP? Here's some fun facts for you. Keir's 25 and grew up in Brough in East Yorkshire. His first job was as a waiter in an Italian restaurant before going into politics after studying at Oxford University. He loves rugby league and supporting his team Hull KR. When not watching rugby, he says his favourite place to visit is the Yorkshire Sculpture Park. And you'd probably find him there with his dachshund Jasper, who he describes as a bit naughty. Well, as we mentioned earlier, he has been nicknamed the baby of the House because he is now officially the youngest MP in the House of Commons. He's only 25 years old with very little life experience. So how much does he really know about the issues that are facing his constituents? It's something I asked him a little earlier.
Well, just like lots of other families, I'm struggling with the cost of living crisis too, and I grew up in a rural village near to Brough. I know what it's like to not have your bus show up, to struggle to get that GP appointment. I understand people's concerns in this constituency because I've lived many of them myself, and I really look forward to bringing that experience to my new role as the Member of Parliament.
I've been talking to people in Selby today, and some have mentioned that you have come straight from Oxford into a career in politics. How do you prove to them that you will prioritise them and their issues and not your career and just towing the party line?
Well, I'm really proud to say that I stood on a plan in this by-election to really make a meaningful difference to people's lives. It got a ringing endorsement at the ballot box, and it's going to be the privilege of my life to implement it.
First day in the job, what's the top priority?
Cost of living, without question. People's mortgage rates in this constituency are through the roof. Energy bills are sky high. They need support from day one, and I'll be there to provide it.
The government has offered support to lower income families, help with energy bills. What difference can you make?
For 13 years under the Conservatives, people haven't had someone fighting their corner and delivering. So I've pledged that as I start this role, I'm going to set up financial support services across this constituency, hubs so that people can access the expert advice they need, whether that's on mortgage rates, their energy bills or the cost of food.
Let's talk about rural transport, public transport, because that is an issue high on the agenda. Many struggling to get to towns and cities, and that impacts on work as well as bringing more people into the areas. What can you do about that?
Well, look, our public transport network in this constituency is holding us back. It's holding back our regional economy, and it's holding back people from doing the jobs that they want. So I think that Labour has an ambitious plan about increasing the frequency of bus services, having them run later into the weekends and the evenings, but also giving local people more of a say over when and how often they run.
Struggles to get GP appointments is an issue that comes up time and time again. Realistically, is there anything you can do to address that?
I think that we do have an enormous issue within the NHS. It requires wholesale reform, and that's why I'm extremely proud to stand on Labour's plan to facilitate the biggest expansion of the NHS workforce in its history.
But the government's already said that, haven't they? They've got a 15-year workforce plan that's already in place.
That's true, but a Labour MP from day one can be getting around the table with health providers and finding what those mechanisms are by which we can start to bring those waiting lists down, and also reflects those community concerns back towards the people who are providing the healthcare services themselves. So I was in North Duffield recently and heard about the issues that people there have accessing GP services. They deserve a local champion in their corner who is really raising those issues with health providers and giving it the awareness it deserves.
In the south, there's the former mining communities. They have issues around pensions, health, representation in Parliament. You were only 6 when the coal mines closed. Do you understand their issues?
Labour has got a really comprehensive plan to support ex-mine workers and their families. We want to hand back the reserve that is currently sat in HMT to give them a boost in their pensions right away. But you're right, there are lots of health concerns, issues with the DWP, and I really want to be a champion for ex-mine workers and their families to fight for those issues and get them the justice that they deserve.
Keir Mather, congratulations.
Thank you very much indeed.
And good luck.
Thank you.
Well, as we just heard there, the new MP says he's excited that this constituency has now got a Labour MP after 13 years under the Tories. I'd like to introduce you now to Dr Anne Sanders. She's a lecturer in British politics from the University of York. Tim Idell is also with us again. And what does last night's result tell us?
Well, the results today represent a historic win for the Labour Party. We've seen a 24-point swing from the Conservatives to the Labour Party. Now that's double the size of the swing that the Labour Party needs at the national level if it is to be in with a chance of winning an overall majority. And this indicates that a Labour government could well be within reach. However, we do need to be mindful that this is by-election results. They do tell us a lot about how parties are currently faring and relatively little about how parties may fare in the future in a year's time, for example. But what we do know, however, is that this has marked a historic day for the Labour Party.
What do we know about the turnout last night and where these extra Labour voters, if you like, came from?
Well, turnout stood at 45%, which is fairly what we would expect. For a by-election, it is in line with by-election turnout, which tends to be much lower than turnout that we see at the national level. But if we dig deeper into the results, what we've seen is that voters are actually, it's Conservative voters that have been less likely to turn out rather than a surge in Labour support. So we've seen a reduction of around 21,000 votes for the Conservatives and a gain of around 2,500 votes for the Labour Party.
Tim Adel, if we can bring you in here, the boundary is changing for this constituency next year, isn't it? What impact will that have? Will it be a strong Labour seat?
It could bring in a few extra Labour voters. There will still be a big Conservative majority baked in here. I mean, yeah, the danger is comparing by-elections to general elections, because you're comparing apples with oranges. And local Conservatives will say, yeah, a lot of their traditional supporters did stay at home. But, you know, what happens in by-elections is some voters decide to lend their vote to certain parties. So you might have lifelong Tory voters saying, well, OK, just for this one election, I'll give Labour a chance. So Labour then have to work hard to secure their votes longer term.
And very briefly, Anna, Labour will be hoping to regain those red wall seats that they lost in the last election, won't they? And this, presumably, will have given them some positive vibes.
Well, there's no doubt it will certainly act as a psychological boost for the party. It will give them that motivational boost that they need in the run-up to the general election. And we know from polling data that the Labour Party has already made some gains in voting intention among seats in the red wall. So providing that motivational boost for the party from today's result, yeah.
Dr. Anna Sanders and Tim Adel, thank you very much. Well, the Labour Party are certainly celebrating here tonight. In fact, I've heard that the new MP is still in the pub down the road celebrating with his colleagues. And there's also a party happening in South Yorkshire tonight. We're going to cross over now to the Tramlines Festival with Corinne. Corinne, it's all yours.
Thanks, Amy. Yes, welcome. It is a Friday night in July. We're in Hillsborough Park, which is filling up with the crowds and the sound of live music. It can only be Tramlines Music Festival, the city's premier live music event. Around 100,000 people, over 100,000 people expected this weekend. Some of the big acts include Kaiser Chiefs, the Cortinas, Ella Henderson and Professor Green. The headline act on the main stage tonight is Richard Ashcroft. And one thing that always strikes me about coming to Tramlines is how it always attracts lots of families. It seems to be quite a family-friendly event, as well as the usual festival goers and crowds of young people who are clearly letting off some steam after finishing their exams. And it's that, isn't it, that first festival experience that I think lots of us remember so well. I certainly do. It's considered to be a rite of passage. But increasingly, there's quite a big cost attached, isn't there, coming to something like this, with energy prices going up and the general increase in the cost of living. It's a headache for festival organisers, as well as carrying a slightly bigger price tag for the people who want the tickets. Beth Parsons has been finding out how they're coping with that challenge.
Festivals, a staple of the summer, a chance to enjoy live music and make memories with friends. But with prices on the rise, how affordable are they?
It's a 3-day festival, but it's still like a good price for 3 days, and like I say, it's a good lineup as well. So,
and because you're going home in between, you can kind of decide what time you want to come and stuff. You're not stuck here all weekend spending loads of money.
Reasonable for full 3 days if you get a weekend one, especially if you get the ones that when they first come out, pre-sale thing.
Admittedly, we might not be spending as much here today as what we might have done kind of pre-pandemic, but we've saved up a little bit, haven't we? So we can enjoy.
Cost of living is a big effect, has a big effect on the way people are feeling, they're down. And I think coming out to the Tramlines, festival is a way of you just getting out from the bustle and hustle of the world and just feel good, and we all need to feel better.
When Tramlines first launched in 2009, it was free. In 2013, whilst it was still a smaller council-run event, it was £15 for a 3-day ticket, compared to Leeds Fest and Glastonbury, which were each a couple of £100 for the weekend. By 2019, Tramlines had moved up to £39. This year, the cheapest first round of tickets start at £79.50. Meanwhile, Leeds Fest, £286, Glastonbury, £335.
But it's not just about ticket prices, you also need food and drink when you're here. One of these will set you back £6 or £7.
Well, everything's going up, everything's more expensive. Cost of living affects everything and everyone, particularly in staffing. We're trying to pay our staff fairly. Everyone's trying to pay their staff fairly. So, we're trying to manage that the best we can, and we're hoping that we don't have to pass it on to our customers. But, who knows?
But organisers of events like Tramlines in Sheffield want to keep it accessible. Joe got his hands on some free tickets because he works for the NHS.
Well, basically, there's a website called Tickets for Good, and sometimes they put on ballots, and sometimes it's first come, first served. It just gives us an opportunity to get to things that we probably wouldn't be able to go to otherwise. So I'm not 100% sure I would have been here today had it not been for this initiative, because it becomes a really expensive weekend.
Joe is one of 35,000 people here every day this weekend, and it's good to know that some tickets are getting into the hands of people who wouldn't have normally had one. Beth Parsons, BBC Lit North, Sheffield.
Well, apologies for some of the sound issues we're having over in Sheffield this evening. But as Corinne mentioned, a few of the big names who will be performing on the headline stage over the weekend. But here at Tramlines, it's not just about playing host to artists from all over the world, but it's also about giving a platform to local talent, up-and-coming artists who are trying to break into the industry. Corinne Wheatley has been catching up with some of those who are taking to the stage today.
From sunny Sydney to not so sunny Sheffield, Johnny, welcome to Tramlines, although it's not DMA's first time at this festival, is it?
Yeah, we love it here. Actually, no, we've definitely been here before because there's this Malaysian restaurant in town called Noodle Doodle, and we go every time we come here.
And you do play quite a lot of UK festivals. So what do you make of the UK festival scene?
Oh, we love it. Yeah. It's I think because the UK has such a rich history in music. You know, we've been heavily influenced by lots of the 90s bands like Stone Roses, Oasis, the Jesus and Mary Chain, Primal Scream. What's even better, I get to watch Block Party and Richard Ashcroft tonight, who are like, two of my childhood kind of staples.
You do play here a lot, don't you? And you've got quite a busy year, it looks like. Is that fair to say?
Man, it's been crazy. So we've done the flight from Australia to here since March, which has only been a few months. We've done it 3 times already. We just love it over here. It's our second home, and we really can't believe, I guess, how people have taken us under their wing. It's pretty special.
You see a better future, where your past keeps on pulling you back.
Hi, my name is Rumbi Tauro, and I'm playing onto the stage at Tramlines Festival today. Super excited to be here for a 3rd year, cannot believe it. The first year was through the Apply to Play scheme that Tramlines do, and then this year we're on tour, and I can't believe it. I'm really, really excited, and I've got everyone with me again. Honestly, it's incredible. Like, I think for me, growing up in Doncaster, I've always had this dream of being an artist and creating my own music, and just to see the journey over the last couple of years of just really taking that next step of trying to figure out what my sound is like, and then not realising, I guess, there were going to be opportunities that are just a stone throw away from home that are going to be part of my career, and just huge milestones.
Oh, so much talent in Sheffield this weekend, Keely. Not really the weather for it, though, is there?
No, I hope they've packed their Macs, their raincoats.
Wellies.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it is a festival, isn't it? And what's a festival without a little bit of rain? But there could be quite a lot of rain.
It always
this
seems
weekend.
to be extremes, though, doesn't it, with these things? It's either boiling hot or
I know. We've had the hottest
muddy.
June on record, and now it's a soggy July, isn't it? And yeah, it does look very disappointing for the weekend, I'm afraid. Not everyone's miserable. Some people don't mind. I say people. Look at these. These ladies don't seem to mind at all, do they? In the Pennine Hills here. And just take a look at this second picture. This is one especially for Amanda, our resident dog lover. Look at little Echo the dog. He, she, we're not sure, but they are all ready for the weekend weather. I hope you've dug your Mac out, because I think you're going to need it this week. And keep your pictures coming in if you're going to brave the rain this weekend. Twitter, Keely Donovan, Instagram, Keely.Donovan, or the Weather Watchers page, of course, because it does look rather disappointing for the middle towards the end of July. A little bit of respite towards the beginning of next week, but just generally for the rest of July, it does look relatively unsettled. So tomorrow there will be a lot of cloud around. There'll also be outbreaks of rain. Some of the rain will be persistent and heavy at times. And it's all down to this area of low pressure. One front on Saturday, this occluded front returns from the north, bringing some persistent heavy and even thundery rain through Sunday. Isolated showers or more more isolated showers on Monday, and Tuesday doesn't look too bad either, but it will be quite cool over the weekend as well. This is the satellite picture from earlier. We had a fair few showers today. They are dying out from the west now, so I think as we head through this evening, we will see dry weather spreading eastwards, but it will be fairly cloudy. And then this will be replaced by wetter weather. This first frontal system moving eastwards overnight. Not a cold night, temperatures dropping back to around 12 degrees. Let's have a quick look at those high water times then, at 7:40 in Scarborough and at 7:47 in Filey. So we'll start the day with a lot of cloud. That initial band of rain will move away, being replaced by another band of rain through the day. It could be persistent and it could be heavy at times as well. The breeze will pick up to generally moderate, but I think some gustier conditions across parts of South Yorkshire, and those temperatures really suppressed, particularly for the time of year. We will expect temperatures like this in May, not in July, 16 or 17 degrees. Looking further ahead into Sunday, another band of rain will sink down from the north. It will be persistent at times and heavy at times as well. There could be some embedded thunderstorms as well. Not as many showers on Monday or on Tuesday, but it will remain cool. And then it does look relatively unsettled. The rain returns for Wednesday. Amanda.
Let's hope summer returns. Thank you very much, Keely. That's it from us. We can go now to Amy and that historic day in Selby. Amy.
Amanda, thank you. It looks pretty miserable for tramline festivals, doesn't it? Thank you. Thankfully, it's held out so far as the rain here in Selby. I'm joined again by Tim, our political correspondent. Tim, you've been out and about in Selby today, as I have. What has been the reaction to the new MP here?
All through this campaign, Amy, it's been very difficult to pin this by-election down to one particular issue, as has happened in other parts of the country. But it's the things that people talking about in towns and cities across Yorkshire, across the country. The cost of living. Why is the supermarket shop going up? Why can't people see a doctor? Why can't they get a GP's appointment when they ring at 8 o'clock in the morning? Why aren't they seeing police officers on the streets on a Friday night? Buses, public transport is another thing we haven't mentioned. I spoke to one chap the other day, says in this part of the world the only place you ever see a bus is on the telly.
I spoke to a few constituents today about what they made of the new MP. Some said they had concerns that he was younger and didn't have that life experience. Then others said it was refreshing to see someone of such a young age. 25, he really is the baby of the house, isn't he?
Yeah, I think a lot of people here will be willing to give him a chance. 25 is very young. He'll be the youngest MP to sit in the House of Commons. I mean, he hasn't come from a kind of, traditional working class Labour background. I mean, back in the day, a lot of Labour MPs used to work down the pit in the steelworks and all that kind of thing. He's been to Oxford, he's done a different kind of career. But I think a lot of people here will probably wish him well. Now, the timing of this by-election is quite interesting because Parliament has already broken up for the summer, so he probably won't be sworn in until September. And that's going to be a very busy time because you have the party conferences, Labour Party conferences, Tory conference, Lib Dem conference, and then we've got probably only about another 12 months and there'll be a general election. So what a time to be a politician.
What a time. Partying now and then the real work starts in September. Well, that's it from us in Selby for this evening. Have a wonderful evening and weekend. Bye-bye.